Keeping track of sex offenders can be tough for police when they don't know where those criminals are living. When they're released from prison, they are required to register with law enforcement. But we discovered Austin police aren't always quick to catch them, possibly putting you and your family at risk.
KXAN investigator Chris Sadeghi found when those offenders go off the grid, it doesn't necessarily mean they will commit other crimes, but sometimes they do.
There are 6 officers in APD's sex offender unit, and they have to keep tabs of more than 1,600 sex offenders. Buried in that type of workload, we found some offenders are going untracked.
It's their responsibility to stay in compliance.
When one of those offenders is out of compliance, there's the potential it could end badly, like the case of Morris Williams, who went to prison for exposing himself to a 14-year-old girl. After serving his time, he failed to report to police in April. 5 months went by, during which court records show he was arrested for other crimes. Theft, then a drunken assault at a gas station. The sex offender unit eventually arrested him in September, sending him back behind bars.
Are there sex offenders that could possibly be falling through the cracks? Yes.
This fall, that number was 15. 15 open investigations into sex offenders gone off the grid, one for nearly 2 years.
These offenders come in and out of the system. They're transitory, and we're doing the best that we can at this point.
We did our best to track down those offenders on our own, simply checking their last listed address with the state's database, easily available to anyone online. We went door to door.
He was listed here at Apartment 101. Does that face look familiar?
And even found a few.
I procrastinate too much.
Like Harold Croft, who molested a 10-year-old girl in the 80s.
Yeah, I've been in and out of the hospital. I keep forgetting.
With others, simple explanations. Some had moved and some had died, but none had been charged with failing to register with police.
I'm glad that your station has brought this up.
Councilman Don Zimmerman chairs the city's Public Safety Committee, and after learning what KXAN discovered, he promised to bring it before his panel.
If I'm late paying a traffic ticket, I'm going to be nailed. So it's kind of astonishing to realize we could have these kind of problems. And
is that acceptable?
That's not acceptable, and I think APD also would find that unacceptable.
The leader of the APD sex offender unit says that each out-of-compliance offender has to be investigated and their case considered separately. She believes a new auditing system will help cut down on the number of out-of-compliance offenders. Since we began investigating, we discovered several new charges for offenders failing to register. Chris Sadeghi, KXAN Investigates.
Chris, thanks. We checked, and other cities like San Antonio, Dallas, and Houston have similar officer-to-offender ratios. Some have implemented extra systems to keep track of their offenders, though. Houston, for example, utilizes a team of citizens, people who are not police, to help keep track of its offenders. But keep in mind, some critics point out most sex offenders do not reoffend after prison. In fact, one expert tells us it's about 10 to 15%.
Yes, but just to make sure they do not reoffend, that's why police are supposed to enforce the registration laws.
Right, and we also found they have to not only register where they live, but also anytime they do something like create a social media profile or even buy a car. Like the case of Thomas Martin. He did not tell police when he bought a new car, one that looked a lot like a police car. A patrol officer ran the plates, but the sex offender unit did not charge him for failing to register until months later, after he was arrested for impersonating a police officer and driving drunk at a McDonald's. We have made it easy for you to pinpoint sex offenders in your neighborhood. A map created by KXAN investigator David Barrere on KXAN.com. And if you know of a sex offender not living where they say they should be, we also have contact information for the APD sex offender unit, in addition to an interactive breakdown of that unit. And remember, if you have something you want us to investigate, email us at report@kxan.com.